This is Wake Up Wyoming on News Radio KIML.
7:33, 33 past 7:27, and then 8. GOP nomination process wide open. U.S. House in Wyoming to replace the retiring Cynthia Loomis. Again, it's a Republican state. A lot of folks have thrown their name in the hat. I believe we've got one of them on the phone, Jason Senteney, a Torrington native. Jason, and I think right there, that's a drop ball. Maybe this is Jason right here. Jason, that you, buddy?
Yes.
All right, Jason Senteney. Senteney, excuse me. I apologize. We've never chatted before. Just read some stuff on your website. Pronounce your surname for me.
It's Senteney.
Senteney. See, I was way off. I'm a guy from Georgia. I can hardly read. It's Senteney. I need a sentinel out here to help me out. Jason, Torrington, born there, over on the Nebraska border. Give us the backdrop. Growing up, high school, college for you.
Well, I graduated from Torrington High School. I was born in Torrington, of course. I went off to the Marine Corps right after high school, so that was kind of my college experience. I ended up going to college later in life, probably in my 20s at West Texas A&M University. I'm majoring in broadcasting with an emphasis on broadcast journalism.
Good. We need a capable broadcaster for this show. I've dropped the ball so many times today, and so hopefully this works out for you. But if not, if you could come replace me in a few months, I think the listeners would appreciate that. 682-1270, 682-1270. Jason, the Marine Corps, that is the most selective of our 4 military groups. What led you to answer their call? The others, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, they're great, but they say, come join us. The Marines say, are you good enough?
Well, I'm a third-generation Marine, so it was kind of expected. It's a family tradition.
I gotcha.
And
some pressure there.
Serving this country is something big and important in my life, so...
Torrington is right there on the Nebraska border. I made the mistake of calling them just the Blazers, but it's the Trailblazers. We're not talking about a jacket that you wear to a party. It's about that pioneering spirit that extends from Torrington to Jackson, from Gillette to Evanston. What is it you love so much about Wyoming?
Well, it's just the people here, the neighborly community that people help each other out. You drive down the road and people wave at each other. It's just... people are a lot friendlier here.
Wait, so that was a wave. That wasn't somebody shooting me the bird the other day. That was a wave. I should have realized that. Actually,
it's possible.
It's possible. It depends on if you cut them off in traffic. It may be a modified wave, right?
Oh yeah,
I got
every
you.
once in a while.
There you go. That's a good country song. Every once in a while, Jason. It's an interesting study here. Big picture. You're one of 11 folks I think that have actively declared, and I've been told that you simply need a plurality. It's not going to be any kind of a runoff. So the winner here may get 9, 12, 13, 7, 14%. You just don't know. It's not like you have to get 50%. So retail politics is always Wyoming, but in this crowded primary, it's especially important to get out and know individual voters, and every vote is going to count.
Well, yeah, it's good to get out there and press some flesh and kiss some babies and just meet people, listen to their problems, and basically, a good representative is going to listen to what's truly affecting people. They're not just going to go with the status quo and listen to the corporations. That's what we need to get away from in Washington.
And what are you hearing when you talk to people that they're struggling with in terms of the government that represents them?
Well, right now the EPA is causing all kinds of problems with these new coal regulations. There's basically a war on energy. And Wyoming is the lifeblood of America. We produce over the majority of the coal in the nation. We produce a good portion of the energy, and we're the beating heart of America. We need to stop the EPA, and I have a plan for that. It's downsizing the EPA by 75%, and basically they will no longer be a regulatory agency. They'll just be an advisory agency. We'll turn over all the regulations to the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality.
I think that's a winning platform, especially for Wyoming. And you mentioned that war on energy, and it's ironic to me the sexy Silicon Valley, which runs on energy, whether it's a battery or plugging in your iPhone, they're so popular. But the base energy, whether it's electricity, the coal that produces electricity, other mining operations, it gets tarred and feathered by the elites on the coasts. And it would be funny if it wasn't so vitally important.
Well, I'm surprised there hasn't been a mass protest at this point. All the coal power plants haven't shut down for a couple of days and just shown America how important coal is to everything.
Our guest is Jason Senteney. He is running in the crowded Republican primary field. We've already talked live in studio, Senator Leland Christensen. We had a phone interview with Liz Cheney. We've got Derek Farmer coming up tomorrow. I've emailed a number of other folks to ask them if they'd like to come on. This is what representative democracy is all about, connecting folks who want to represent you with voters, with listeners. I'm going to take a look at one of your platform issues here. You are proposing getting rid of the federal income tax, replacing it with the national sales tax. Tell me more about your idea.
Well, I proposed this when I ran in 2014, and people seem pretty receptive. Basically what it is we do away with the 16th Amendment, which is the federal income tax, and we transition to a national sales tax. Basically, your paychecks are going to be a lot bigger. Now, in the beginning, for the first 5 years, it's going to be 12%. That seems like a bit much, but we have some bills to pay. We have a national debt. We have Social Security money that we need to replace that the government basically stole from the American people. We have infrastructure problems. We have $3.6 million in infrastructure problems. We have some stuff we need to fix. We have some bills we have to pay, and we can't keep kicking the can down the road. I have kids. I don't want them to pay for my generation's mistakes, and that's something we need to fix. And with the national sales tax, we can do that.
And I think everybody would agree that there needs to be tax reform. An issue with the national sales tax, right now, if I sell something on Gillette Classifieds or Craigslist or even eBay at times, I may or may not have to pay sales tax. How would you ensure that just mom and pop all the way up to big corporate expenditures that sales tax was levied and collected?
Well, basically, the Wyoming Department of Revenue or that particular state's Department of Revenue is going to collect the taxes. We're going to get rid of the IRS. If it's a more grassroots collection, they're going to be able to have the oversight to look at small mom and pop places and fit online sales and stuff like that. But it's also going to rein in all the under-the-table spending, such as prostitution, drug dealing, stuff like that. They're all going to be paying taxes too. And Wall Street, they're going to be paying a 12% tax up front when they buy stocks.
Now, Jason,
that's going to account for $4.4 trillion.
How would undercover or illicit stuff, and you're talking to a libertarian who says legalize all that stuff anyway, but let's say that drugs are still illegal, how am I going to pay taxes if I don't want anybody to know that that's going on?
Well, because the drug dealer, your money is going to end up paying taxes at some point. At
some point. I got you. Okay, but not on that deal. If I go out the corner by the old abandoned factory warehouse and sell $10,000 worth of hemp or something to somebody, obviously that's not going to be on that particular deal.
Under this system, there's no loopholes. There's a few exemptions, like your basic utilities, basic health care, dental insurance, healthcare insurance, the basic essentials you need to live.
Right.
Those are going to be exempt.
Right.
So we're not going to penalize poverty-ridden people.
Gotcha. Now, one of the issues that any tax system, aside from what I support, which would be a head tax, where everybody just pays a set amount, say $3,000 a year, and you've either paid it or you haven't, one of the issues you have is government intrusion in terms of up in your life. And the income tax is how much you make, and a sales tax is how much you spend. How do you philosophically differentiate the intrusion of government on an income tax and a sales tax? Because in both things, they have to know how much you're either making or spending.
Well, they're not going to totally know everything you're spending. If you're putting money in savings, if you're stuffing money under the mattress, they're not going to know about that money.
Right, but that's not spending, is it? That's saving. I would think in a sales tax system, they would necessarily need to know how much you're spending in order for it to be collected and to calculate the percentage.
Well, that happens at the final point of sale. You already have local and city sales tax in place.
Gotcha.
We have the infrastructure in place to already account for all that stuff.
Jason Senteney is our guest via phone. And where are you right now, Jason?
I'm in my house in Yoder, kind of snowed in.
And tell me, I'm a guy that's relatively new to Wyoming, and Yoder is where?
12 miles south of Torrington.
12 miles south of Torrington. I didn't know you could get 12 miles south of Torrington and still be in Wyoming. How far is that from, I guess, you get the Nebraska border over there? Is it Colorado? I don't have a map in front of me. What do you got over there?
Basically, Nebraska is about 11 miles to the east, and straight south of me, about 70 miles is Cheyenne.
Cheyenne. Okay, I got you. See, that's folks. You can see what a Georgia redneck I am. I've still got to get my Wyoming. I've still got to get a Gillette map, Jason. I'm relying on my iPhone driving around town. What would differentiate you, Jason, from the number of other fine candidates running the Republican side. Why should folks vote for Jason Senteney and not one of the other 9, 10, 11, 12 million folks that have thrown their hat in the ring?
Well, basically, I've been right there in the trenches of life with people, living paycheck to paycheck. I understand how it feels. That's why I ran in 2014 and got about 24% of the vote. In running this time, I thought I was going to be running against Congresswoman Lummis again, but then she stepped down and kind of surprised everybody. And what sets me apart from everybody else is I believe in public service. I've served in the Marine Corps. I currently serve as a correctional officer. I'm currently a volunteer firefighter. And I serve on the Air Quality Small Business Compliance Advisory Council. I was appointed by Governor Meade. So I've been doing things for Wyoming for years now, and I love this state. I was born here. I don't want things to change here, and I want to diversify our economy, and I will work to actually, on my off time, meet with CEOs and poach businesses from other states and bring them to Wyoming.
So a little bit of that scout sniper thing from the Marine Corps. You're going to poach some guys, bring them to a state that's much more business friendly.
Yes.
How would you go about doing that? Would you contact these CEOs, just email them up, say, hey, I'm Congressman Senteney. We've got a fantastic state here, and you can make more money and have happier, more productive workers by cowboying up?
I'm going to tell them the fact that we have no corporate tax in Wyoming. I'm going to talk to them about how business-friendly we are. I'm just going to sit down and talk to them person to person. That's basically what we've lost in this society. With emails and everything else, it's not as personal as it used to be, and we need to get back to that because we can make good deals.
No doubt about it. Jason Senteney is our guest. He is one of the many folks running to potentially replace, almost assuredly replace, whoever gets this nomination. It's a very, very Republican state. 1978, 30 December was the last time that a Democrat was a member of the U.S. House in Wyoming. When we come back, we will talk to Jason some more on the other side of the break, ask him about how he's going to be able to take his Wyoming values and be one of 435 folks and get along but not give up his Wyoming values as he represents the cowboy state. Potentially, somebody will, most likely Republican, could be a Democrat. You never know. That's why the votes will be counted. The people will decide. This is Wake Up Wyoming. 7:50, 50 past 7, 10, and then 8. I'm also a guy that can get lost in a phone booth. You remember phone booths? If you're old like I am, you do. But, you know, it's good to have a Marine, somebody who went to a high school where their nickname is the Trailblazers. They know how to get around. Our guest from 12 miles south of Torrington, Jason Senteney, is running in that crowded GOP primary field to potentially replace Cynthia Lummis in the U.S. House. Jason, thanks for hanging on. Appreciate you being with us.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Jason, the Wyoming capital is in an odd spot, as we all know, in the southeastern corner of the cowboy state. The cowboy state is big and vast, but not as big and vast, obviously, as America. The U.S. Capitol, Washington, where you, whoever wins this primary, and if they win the general election, will be heading, is way heck far away from Wyoming, but it's even further away philosophically in terms of just big government intrusive in our everyday lives. If you are ultimately our representative, how will you take your Wyoming values, stand up for them, but also compromise, get along, negotiate, deal with folks in the Republican and Democratic parties, whose worldview, whose philosophy is going to be markedly different from yours?
Well, you're going to have to go out there and form coalitions. Representative Love, Representative Chaffetz from Utah would be two people I'd like to sit down with and form a coalition because we have a lot of the same values, although Wyoming's just a little bit better, in my own personal opinion. But it's just about talking to people, becoming more personal. That's just something we've lost in society. I think that's why it's so separated like it is today.
What are the... Go ahead, Jason.
Basically just press the flesh with members of Congress. I also believe in constitutional term limits, so I might not be the most popular guy in Washington when I first get there. But I'll show them the benefits of it,
right,
and how it'll work out in their own best interest and for their constituents, and I think I could get something like that passed.
Jason, I'm going to ask you a question that I've asked every politician or aspiring politician I've interviewed in my time with KIML Radio. What is something that the federal government does well?
National defense. Being a Marine, I saw a lot of great things. The one drawback is the Marines basically get everyone else's hand-me-downs. More of that going to government contractors than it actually is the military itself. And we need to raise military pay. We also need to get them better equipment when they actually go into combat. That's something, in the mistake they made in Iraq, they didn't have the right equipment. They didn't have plated Humvees like they should have, and lots of people got maimed or killed. Lots of good patriots lost their lives because of the fault of the federal government. But overall, the military itself is probably the best thing the federal government does.
When you look at our nation, it's huge, 300 and something million people. The Northeast is very big government, traditional, left of center. The Southeast is very evangelical, Protestant, right of center. The area of the country in which we live, Intermountain West, has that strong leave us alone libertarian streak. The West Coast is what I would call tree-hugging, wacky liberal. There's really four different approaches. I haven't even touched on Indiana, Ohio, those areas. How long, and you look at Eastern Europe with all the countries that are getting smaller and breaking away, how long realistically can the United States still be one country?
Well, it's taken a couple of thousand years for Europe to get to this point. So I think since we're a young country, we got a couple of generations before anything, hopefully not, but hopefully something that drastic doesn't happen and we have another civil war. I pray that doesn't ever happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't suspect a civil war. I would suspect more like you've seen in most of Eastern Europe. It's a peaceful thing. It's saying, look, we've got some brass tacks disagreements that aren't going to be solved, and it's better to go our separate ways. I can't see Wyoming invading Colorado over both states' perceived goofy gun laws. They're saying that we're just too crazy cowboy, and we're saying they're too much of a gun grabbers, but we don't have to shoot it up over that, do we?
Well, we can all have our differences, but at the end of the day, we're all Americans. There's this really important document that starts out, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union. That's what we are. We're a union. It's a marriage. We don't always have to like each other, but at the end of the day, we're all together in this. We're one nation under God.
Our guest is Jason Senteney. He's running in that crowded GOP primary field to try and replace Cynthia Lummis in the United States House of Representatives. The fact that it is just a plurality, if you had your druthers, would you keep it as it is, or would you say, hey, the top two or top three or top four would go to a runoff? What's your thought?
Well, California does something where the highest vote getters, no matter if they're Democratic or Republican, go to the general election. Here in Wyoming, with it being as Republican as it is, I wouldn't mind seeing two Republicans in the general election, or the highest two vote getters, which more than likely would probably be two Republicans.
Gotcha.
But as it sits right now, it kind of works. But in August, 9 times out of 10, that is your general election in the Republican primary.
Very fair assessment. Jason, you've talked about how you want to listen, you want to get involved, be a people guy, but one specific issue on policy where you're going to be perhaps different from everybody, if not most, of your comrades in the GOP primary would be?
I'd have to say I believe in the old Republican platforms. I'm more of an Eisenhower Republican. I believe social responsibility is important. I don't believe on giving money away constantly and basically being that person's source of income. I believe in short-term help to get them on their feet and get them back into the workforce. That's what Eisenhower believed. I also believe in reviving like the CCC programs that were there to help the unemployed, the people on welfare, and the homeless. I think that's where the Republican Party in more recent years, they look at it as more just handouts, people living off the system. And if we shorten the length of time those people could get benefits, we could get them back into the workforce. I think that's where I differ.
Speaking of length of time, a little over 2 minutes, I'm going to shut up, and you tell the listeners, our voters, why they should select Jason Senteney and not somebody else in the upcoming GOP Republican primary.
Well, basically, I've been right there with everybody, working paycheck to paycheck, right there in the trenches of life. If they want more information about me, they could go to senteneyforwyoming.org. I'm probably the most transparent candidate out there. My website's pretty comprehensive and transparent, and basically, I'm asking for your vote because I was born here, and I know what Wyoming values are. I'm Wyoming proud, Wyoming born, and Wyoming tough. And if you send me to Washington, I'm going to fight for each and every one of you, no matter what your background is.
Even if you butcher their last name, Senteney. I apologize. I've called you Senteney. Senteney is his surname. Jason is his first name. And I'd agree, folks, just on a straight-up analysis, he's very straightforward. He lays it out there, tells you out of which camp he is. His website is detailed. And I'd encourage you to take a look at him and everybody. And again, you're not going to find anybody with whom you agree on every issue, and nor should you want to. We're all human beings with our different takes. But this would be a fine choice, as would just about everybody else. I'm going to have to obviously leave that up, as it should be, to each individual's conscience and the voters. But, Jason, very much appreciate you taking some of your time, telling us your story, your positions, your platform, and we look forward to visiting with you again several times, hopefully in person if you make it over this way. I know it's a vast, expansive state, but as we get closer to that primary, the weather gets better. We'd love to have you in studio.
Outstanding. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Jason Senteney from his home south of Torrington, and I'm a clown when it comes to figuring out directions, and especially when I'm in a place I haven't been too long and spent some time in Evanston, get to know that part of the state a little bit better. And I was always, somehow in my mind, I thought that Torrington was just due east of Cheyenne. It's well northeast of Cheyenne. It's closer to the Nebraska border than Cheyenne is. Cheyenne is closer to the Colorado border than the Nebraska border. I'm not telling folks in the listening audience anything they don't know. I'm just exposing how much of a joke I am in terms of my Wyoming map. But wonderful story right there, and very much appreciate Jason Senteney, not Senteney, not Senteney, joining us this